from today, the Bills most likely, can't see why they wouldn't, will have their first-round pick, 30th overall. And, right, well, what would it take? What would be the move that's left out there where they wouldn't have their first-round pick? I don't think there is one. Does Hendrickson cost a first if he gets traded?
No.
Which, by the way, he still hasn't signed.
Hasn't signed.
A week ago, it was like, they're
close. Signing everybody. Yeah.
But they haven't. I don't even think Hendrickson really costs you a first because of his age.
Don't think so either. You're not trading a first for a 30-year-old. No way.
So they're going to have their first, and we're 1 month away from it. And
would you say that there's a better chance that they try to move up in this draft?
Sure.
And how far? That's how far could you?
They look back on their picks. When haven't they moved around? At least
they move.
What are the odds they make the 30th pick? They're probably an underdog.
80%.
No, I think 80% they don't make it.
Okay.
Let's look back on Bean's history.
When they've made their pick.
First-round picks that were where he was supposed to pick. Because Allen and Edmonds, remember, for his first draft, he traded up for both of them.
Yep.
Allen, that was necessary. Edmonds, I guess it was too. The year after, Ed Oliver. Okay, that one maybe they sat where they were, right at 9. They didn't move.
They didn't move?
No, they were there.
They were there.
Okay, so Oliver they didn't, but as I'm looking at that draft, round 2, Cody Ford. They moved up for Cody Ford.
They did.
The next year they didn't have a first. AJ Epinesa, I don't remember if they moved for that. That was second round anyway. Okay, Greg Rousseau, maybe they didn't move?
Greg Rousseau, I believe they stood pat.
At 30?
Yeah.
Kyrie Elam, they moved up.
Yep.
James Cook, they moved down.
Dalton Kincaid, they moved up.
Dalton Kincaid, they moved up. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
To get him before Dallas got him.
Okay. Coleman, they moved down twice. And that's it.
And
so
there's
it's
probably
like
some trades that, in the middle rounds that we don't really remember. But yes, no,
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of ammunition. He's 11 picks? 10 picks?
Yeah. The thing, though, about moving up in round 1, I don't know who that would be for, also, by the way. Like, they could love a guy. I don't have a name or an idea.
Either do I.
That makes sense for.
I guess I would say that what would make sense is, because if you talk to really anybody that is truly covering the draft, a lot of what the conversation around this draft is, like, the difference between, 11 and 45 is very minuscule. It's really kind of dealer's choice, stylistically, positional need. But if, the run on, there are guys that really are first round picks or considered, round 1 grades. I'm not sure how many round 1 grades this draft class has for Brandon Beane, but let's just say you get to the 15th pick or something, and there's one guy left that has a round 1 grade, and he's at a position of need. He's at defensive end. He's at corner. Mm-hmm. Do you say we either get the drop between the 4th corner and the 5th corner is too dramatic, and we don't think we're going to have a shot at one of the ends? We don't think we're going to have a shot at one of the safeties. Mm-hmm. This is our opportunity to get a first-round grade player. This is it. This is all we've got. Maybe it's Will Johnson. I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. But that could be a scenario where you can convince me that it'd be a good idea to trade up and maybe take to me, trading from 30 to 26,
yep.
First of all, it probably isn't going to cost you a whole lot. But is this probably the one draft you could look at and say, this might be the cheapest draft in recent memory to move up?
It could be. We'll see.
Because of the lack of quarterbacks.
Yeah, right. That's why. There's not the premium positions. End is loaded. And
it's not a good receiver class.
Corner is pretty good, but receiver, no. Quarterback, no.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would agree with that. They moving up, though, them having 11 picks, the fact that they only have 3 picks, though, like you normally would, through the first 2 days of the draft, I don't know how far you're getting. You're probably not getting very far at all, offering 5ths and 6ths to move up in the first round. Those are throw-ins usually, not core centerpieces of those trades. So I guess they could move, their second if they felt that it was worth going up far. They don't have a third. And that's really where I wanted to get to, is them not having a third, but they do have that extra second. So it's 3 picks through Friday. We're going to have 2 draft parties, by the way. We're going to be at Resurgence on Thursday for round 1. We're going to be at Wayland for rounds 2 and 3 on Friday. And 1 first, 2 seconds. This is the starting point I'm going to get to with you, because we haven't talked draft really yet. 4 positions that it feels like the Bills have to add something at some point? Would you say more or less than
safety,
that?
corner.
You're including safety?
Yeah.
Because I was not including safety.
Oh, where were you including?
Corner, defensive end, defensive tackle, and wide receiver. You got safety on there?
I do.
To start, though? Because to me, I've been treating it as though there's almost no way that it's not Rapp and Cole Bishop starting week 1.
That feels right. Unless they
don't trust Cole Bishop,
or they draft somebody early. I mean, if one of the two, if either the kid from Georgia or the kid from South Carolina are there,
Nick Emenwari,
yeah, or Starks,
yeah,
like maybe that's, and again, maybe that's because the top 3 corners are gone, the top 4 defensive ends are gone, and you're looking at it and you're saying the best available player here at 30, is a safety, and and they're both freaks of nature.
Yep.
Freaks of nature.
We've talked about safety. We've talked about Emenwari, especially because he's 6'3" and ran a 4.39.
Because you have to look at this and say, when you are looking at the draft board, what you're saying is 4, I'm saying even potentially 5 positions that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
With only 3 picks in the top 60.
Yeah. To me, it becomes not, because
is it not? Are you of the mind that they haven't put themselves in a position to take best available player?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I always feel like it's best available amongst the positions you can actually see the guy getting reps. You know, like if their best available is a tight end at 30, they're not drafting a tight end, right? There'll be no opportunity to see the guy play, so there's no point of doing it. To me, all those positions.
Well, of course, tight end,
offensive line, even they're not drafting
running back.
Where the whole offensive line is coming back, and the backups.
Yeah,
they're not drafting a guard at 30 if it's their best player available. They're not drafting a running back if it's best player available at 30. I don't think they're drafting a. Well, I guess defensively, maybe you could argue anything. Would they draft a linebacker if a linebacker was their best available? Maybe you'd say yes now because Milano is only on a 1-year contract now and injuries, and I don't know. But for the positional need, you could throw safety in there. To me, the difference with safety is you could definitively say I could live without it.
Yes.
I might like to have Emenwari or Starks and upgrade, but I can live without it. There is a plan there. The plan is Rapp's under contract, and we heard about all year that they don't love to throw safeties right in. They want them to learn the system. They want them to get their reps. So
also,
Bishop not playing in year 1.
He missed a lot of training camp.
And he missed a lot of training camp.
I think that's important. I wonder, I'd be super interested to know if Bishop doesn't get hurt last training camp, if he ends up overtaking Hamlin as the starter.
At least sooner. Maybe not like right away, but at some point during the year that wasn't just because of injury. But I think that's going to happen week 1. Like that seemed to be the plan. The plan, other than him getting hurt in training camp, is we bring our safeties along slowly. We need them to know the system like the back of their hand.
Right.
So safety they can live without. What are those other 4 do you feel like they can live without? Corner, defensive end, defensive tackle, wide receiver. You get 3 picks.
Wide receiver.
It's definitely wide receiver for you?
Yes.
I will say our poll right now, it's a tie between receiver and actually defensive end coming in half a percentage higher. Something you can live without the Bills taking in the first 3 picks. 1 first and 2 seconds. They got to take a corner? Right now it feels like they got to take a corner, right?
I mean, because to me, I'm not even interested in bringing Rasul Douglas back. And he's the most obvious one because he knows the system, and he would probably be a plug and play.
Didn't they already do that with Dane Jackson?
Yeah, maybe.
Is he not their?
I would say he and Rasul Douglas are probably. I mean, maybe I would give the edge to Douglas, but it wouldn't be by a lot.
Right.
It just Douglas towards the end. It didn't look like it was before he got injured last year going into the playoffs. Like that run from when the time they traded him until he got injured going into the wild card game, or maybe it was from the wild card game into the divisional game. He has not looked like the same player. He has looked like age has caught up to him. And he was the one guy you looked at and said he could probably play later into his career than most corners because he's not super reliant on the, like athleticism, but he was getting burned. He was getting burned. And stuff you don't see a Bills defense do, which is get burned down the field, he was kind of the culprit of a lot of that. So, to me, I guess let me pose this question to you, because I think it has meaning to the rest of this conversation, which is, it doesn't feel like Brandon Beane has exhausted every opportunity to add to his roster and add good players to his roster. I think it was Greg Thompson that said this, right? Cap space is an interesting way of putting it, but I don't want to misquote what he said, but it was essentially like, it's talking about like, how much functional space could you have? How much could you actually spend?
Sure.
And they could, if they wanted to, spend another $50 million. And I'm wondering why they wouldn't do that. Like, why they wouldn't spend as much as they possibly can right now, knowing that this window of having this version of Josh Allen is probably never going to be better than he is right now.
Yep.
So, and maybe it's just, hey, it's fit. But like Asante Samuel, doesn't that just seem like an obvious, he's better than what you have? Like, let's just go get a guy, even if it's in a 1-year deal. All the guys they've gone out and got of consequence, other than Hoyt, are on 1-year deals. They're 1-year deals.
Yeah.
That's, to me, not exactly what I was thinking.
I think part of that is, and this is why I think the draft becomes more important, and you kind of wish that, you wish you had more to chew on than, well, my search for studs, which to me was what this offseason was about, which was a search for studs. They have so many good players and so few holes, but I think everyone was in agreement the thing they were missing outside of Josh Allen last season was game-breaking talent, top-level players at their positions. You have a couple, but not many. Dawkins is arguably that, and of course Allen is that, and maybe James Cook was that last year, but even him, we've talked about his snap count and whether he's worth $15 million, and you can question whether he's one of the 5 best backs in football, whatever. They don't have a lot of studs. And now it's up to the draft maybe to find those guys. For me, though, is it their motivation to do it, or is it those guys never got traded?
Yeah.
You mentioned Asante Samuel Jr. I wonder if they're in on him. What are his deficiencies? They're the things that they say the Bills don't like. He's smaller and he's not a good tackler, right? I'd be impressed if they signed him with those deficiencies. He's a good coverage corner. But Garrett didn't get traded.
He did not get traded.
Max Crosby didn't get traded.
They both signed significant extensions.
So those guys didn't become available. And
I just don't know
Metcalf did. Metcalf was the right or wrong. Was he not the best player that changed hands this offseason? Unless you wanted to, is Milton Williams as good at his position as Metcalf is?
I would say Metcalf is the biggest.
So you could be upset they didn't trade for Metcalf, I guess.
You could be.
But there was nothing on defense that we had in mind for the Bills this year that actually got moved.
So let me say this, though, in the conversation about Myles Garrett. Let's assume that they were serious about it. They were not just serious, but they were exploring that option. You have one of your best players and one of your captains, Deion Dawkins, out there publicly saying, we want you. He's pitching him.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, and there were a lot of reports that the Bills were going to be basically it was between the Bills and Eagles. Those were the two interested parties. That was kind of the report. If that is true, and you were willing to trade what was necessary to get Myles Garrett and then make him, let's assume you knew that if you were trading for him, he was likely going to be the highest paid player in the league, non-quarterback. And then that never happens. It never materializes. And your next best move is Ogunjobi, who's getting suspended, and Hoyt and Bosa. That feels like
what else was there?
We went from, but I guess I was just maybe expecting, if that was your, that's what you really wanted, your plan A.
Yeah.
Your plan B was effectively significantly less impactful.
Could you see them not being done? I wonder if there's more. Right now, this draft question is within the context of what they've already added. But with that being said, could they be done?
Moves do happen in June. But what kind of move is happening in June?
They happen at the draft, too. And I've been pointing this out a lot lately, that their search for a whale might not be over. We just don't know because remember when A.J. Brown got traded at the draft?
Yep.
No one thought that was happening. There wasn't
right.
weeks of build-up about, where's A.J. Brown going to get traded? A.J. Brown just got traded. Sometimes
right.
that can happen at the draft, but I've looked. I don't know who that name is. I mean, is Micah Parsons going to stun everybody and get traded? I don't know. He needs a contract still, doesn't he? You can find really the way to do that is to look at the list of guys and see who's up for contracts. Who's someone that might shake loose from their current team that doesn't sound like there's a lot of drama right now? We've talked about Chris Olave for this a little bit. The problem with him is he's got concussion issues.
Yeah, injury history.
But that's how you get a stud. You got to go find a guy that's got 1 year left on his deal, and you might have to predict whether that person's going to shake loose. 803-0550 is the phone number on this or on the draft. Is there a position you can live without the Bills taking in the first 2 days of the draft? Mike in Connecticut is next up. What's up, Mike?
Morning, guys. How you doing today?
Morning. Good.
So I saw your poll, Joe. I'm personally okay with not taking a wide receiver. I feel like as much as you guys are talking about studs, we don't have a stud wide receiver. I think the Bills have invested a lot with, even guys that aren't huge names. Josh Palmer, 12 a year. Shakir's 15 a year. Curtis Samuel, 8 a year. A high draft pick investment in Keon Coleman. I'm pretty comfortable there. I just really would love defense in the first 2 rounds, all of the picks. You just see all of our playoff losses, how many points we're averaging giving up. But one thing that I will say that I think is like kind of a dark horse thing, I don't think it's going to happen, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised the way that the Bills have, when they tried to take Elam, that was a position of need, and, they struck out there. I would not be surprised, and I'm not saying it's going to happen at 30, but in the second round, if the Bills look for an interior offensive lineman, if they can't make it work with McGovern or Edwards going forward, and I also don't think linebackers out of the equation at 30, especially if like Jahad Campbell's sitting there and you only have 1 year left with Milano, that could be a stud. I don't, not that I want that to happen, but I don't think it's the dumbest thing in the world if Brandon Beane went that route.
All right. Thanks, Mike, for the call.
I think linebacker is going to be I think it'll be a position that they go for in this draft. I'm not sure it'll be in the top 60.
I was going to say, you want to do that high, this doesn't have to be true, but you're drafting, a will linebacker to not play the whole year unless there's an injury. And I felt like Williams was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't do better than Dorian Williams,
of course.
But I draft a linebacker, and then what's the role? He's going to be my third string will linebacker to start?
You can't draft somebody at 30 that's not. I think this draft is more important than anything, that the first 3 picks, 2 of them are that are competing and win starting jobs. I think it'll be super important for them to have 2 starters coming out of this draft.
And to Mike's question about or his point about interior offensive linemen, that's kind of the same situation where, okay, you're right. Edwards and McGovern are on 1 year deals. They've 1 year left in their contracts. So decisions will need to be made on the interior with those 2.
Yep.
I can see them wanting to have somebody ready, but you have Alec Anderson under contract already. You have all your other backup linemen under contract. You have Edwards and McGovern for this year. Okay, let's say you do that. You draft a center with your first, second round pick. You're basically signing up for him to not play all year, right?
And I
don't even know that
They can't afford to do that.
He'd have to be pretty solid and polished, ready to go, because every indication is they love Alec Anderson, and if one of those guys gets hurt, he's the guy that's going in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think you feel very good if Alec Anderson has to play football for you.
And there is
he might be their guy. You might say David Edwards, we're good. Like, we've got Alec Anderson ready to step in as a full-time guard in the NFL, and I think you'd feel fine about it. Like, I think it's a sneaky pick, but I don't see it as, like, I view these top 3 picks as you need to fill positions on your defensive line, your defensive backfield, and I think those are probably it. I think you probably need... See, I guess all of this, too, continues the conversation around Dwayne Carter, who I think is also going to be part of the conversation moving forward.
That's right, and we'll get to him. I guess for me, Mike's call about, Elam maybe did get you in trouble this way. I would agree with that. But I don't want to see the Bills kind of punt on 2025 with some of their most valuable picks in the name of, this is my best option for the future after that. I understand that might be a good, process, but I am fresh off of an AFC Championship game loss where they got 0 from their rookie class.
Yeah, 0.
Look at their last game of the year that they lost. Keon Coleman played his lowest snap count of the year.
Yep.
Wasn't on the field at the end. It was Cooper that was getting a screen pass at the end, not Coleman. Coleman didn't play as much.